This meeting being, okay, got it.
Now it says this meeting is being live streamed.
Ah, that's ugly. There we go. Now. Okay. Oh, it's reversed. Oh, God.
Just be careful, if we're live, yeah, it says live, so they're hearing everything. Unless you mute. I asked Dakota if he's seeing anything, but not yet.
Okay. Now. Okay. Now. Listen to that delay.
There we go, live it now, it seems.
Oh.
Technical difficulties. All right, Dakota's saying we're live.
There we go. Okay. Well,
A little late.
there is a crazy delay online here.
Okay.
And one of the reasons is because I'm sharing this from my desktop to my personal Facebook page and then sharing that link to the OnSong Facebook page. So it's jumping all over the map. But apparently, well, we have a couple of people. I can't see who's there, but we are live. Hello, hello. Hopefully, you folks will see this in just a minute. I'm gonna dump this. because we are live. And we are live. We are live. There's a couple of people. Hey, Jim.
Yeah,
Well, um, hey, Jim would check with Dakota and see if he can see it on the.
yeah, he did. He said he's seeing it live.
Okay. All right. Oh boy. There's going to be a ton of messages, and I apologize for that, folks. We'll figure this out. Apparently, Facebook changed their method of doing things, and so right now I am showing you a couple of things. First of all, I have a camera over my shoulder, and you can see that I have OnSong up, and I've created a PDF, but the PDF really is all about OnSong. So let me see if I can make this big enough. Hello, rotate. There it is. And see if you can follow the bouncing ball. Game. So, quick introduction. My name is Sam Baker, and with me is Jim Day. And we are trying to put together a series of real short informations about OnSong. We're going to start with very, very, very basics. So for those who may be advanced users, we apologize, but you know what? All knowledge is good knowledge, and we can go there. You know what? I probably ought to do. Let me see if this is going to work. Let's see here. FaceTime camera. If I switch over, there we are. Hello. You can see me here. Yes, I know. My hair is now jet black. I'm also in a little stage production, and I play Dracula. And so for the part, I've dyed my hair black. Anyways, but so I'm here in my little home studio, and got a bunch of stuff. Jim is in his home studio that he's in the process of building
Yeah,
out.
it's getting there. Actually, I just told Sam my desk arrived just this past week, so I'm just starting to get the room done. But it'll be by, I think, in the next week or so, I'll have it. I'm working on acoustic treatment in the room right now. So anyway, if it's a little echoey in here, I apologize for that for today. But you hearing okay?
Yeah, I hear you fine. I'm just trying to figure out where I've got a delay echo that I hear.
Yeah. Let's say, folks, we had to kind of scramble this morning trying to get this thing up and running. Had some Facebook issues, but we'll get those resolved and get this working a little better next time.
Well, hopefully hopefully you folks don't hear the. I'm trying not to step over Jim in the process of making a comment. All right, so we'll just take this slow. Let's talk about the atomic structure and what this is about. These are tips and tricks. I have a personal philosophy that you got to understand the basics and the core before we can start to talk about some of the other things that are going on with the application. So we've put together a little presentation on that. We're calling this tips and tricks. It really is basic usage. it's going to be a series of half-hour deals, so that it won't take you hours to view any particular one. We had a great comment on the group that said, "Can you please hashtag these?" And we will. Jim is the master of hashtags, so he'll end up hashtagging this. And so Jim and I worked actually a couple of years ago, putting together what we were going to hope was face-to-face training with you folks with OnSong, and we worked with OnSong on it, and then COVID hit, and the whole thing disintegrated. But the material still works, so we're going to use some of it. We're not going to get into the user interface immediately, but we will. I promise you, we will. And to that end, let me see if I can pop this thing up in Zoom directly, as opposed to watching over my shoulder, which I don't mind doing, by the way. No, it's not going to let me do it. You know, that's one of the problems with Zoom. Okay, it's okay. We'll just do this over my shoulder. So, basic usage. Now, the information in this course is really aligned to the most current version of OnSong, which is 2022 5.13. By the way, the last digit, that 13, is actually a build number, right? So this is OnSong 2022.5, build number 13, and it's really targeted to iOS 15.7. Now, when we get to issues around the Mac, we'll try and do that. When we get to issues around 2020, in terms of user interface and sort of mechanics, we'll try and do some of that. But fundamentally, we want to stay with the most current version, because that's where all the features and functions are, kind of a superset of everything that they've done. And there's more coming. So with that, Jim, any starting words?
Oh, I think that it was good. Like Sam said, this is something we actually, I was thinking about it last night, Sam. In fact, I think it was almost 3 years ago we started this whole endeavor of trying to come up with some training curriculum. And actually, Sam did most of the work on that. You know, you get to working with your buddy, and about 3 or 4 days later, he goes, "Hey, take a look at this Dropbox. I got the whole first day ready." So I did a lot of reviewing and things like that. But we've had this going on for a couple of years now, and now we're just going to start using some of it to do some live stream videos and things like that here, so that we can. One of the things we see in the Facebook group quite a bit is, you know, just the same problems, and so we're going to try to solve some of that with a little bit of education.
Okay. All right. So here we go. So some of the ubiquitous necessary stuff. By the way, I will post this PDF up on the community forum for those people who want to review it. And to that end, it's actually intellectual property owned by Lone Star Sound, my company. So with help from Jim. So we just want to make sure that you understand that. And then any of the screen pictures or things like that that we talk about that are OnSong intellectual property, those are obviously owned by OnSong. So that's that. So this is show number 1, an introduction to OnSong, the atomic structure, database versus files, and a peek inside the OnSong database. So the idea is to gain a deeper understanding, so that when you do something through the user interface, you kind of have an idea of what you're doing. We don't expect you to be database administrators, but we do expect you to understand a little bit about how OnSong was put together, so that you can be smarter as you use it. So here we go. Who is Sam Baker? Why is he here? Who cares? All right. These are my two favorite expressions. BTSU, back that sucker up, and RTFM, read the fine manual. There is a wealth of information available on the onsongapp.com website. Probably not necessarily the manual, but the frequently asked questions and the tips and tricks that are up there. The videos that are up there, yes, some of them are dated. We know that the development path and the delivery is faster than they can produce videos. But for the basic user, there's a lot of great information up there.
Mhm.
We're going to try not to duplicate all that information. Obviously, we'll cover it, but we're not going to try and duplicate it. But we are going to try and add some context and actually use OnSong. You know what I should do? I should move the video so you can see what I'm looking at. There we go. All right. There's a words to live by. Oh, yeah, that's who's Sam Baker. I don't care about that. All right. So BTSU, back that system up and read the fine manual. We're going to talk a lot about backup in the next show because there's a lot to learn about backup and how that all works. But those are my favorites, and you've seen me post this on the community before, and it will get posted from time to time. Okay. What is the atomic structure of OnSong? Right? Well, the atomic structure of OnSong is the song. Right? Now, like every atomic structure, it has pieces. There's neutrons and protons and all those types of things inside the atomic structure. But basically, we talk about a song, right? And there are attributes that go with the song, such as the key, the BPM, sections, verses, choruses, things like that. Books are a way to group like songs, right? So a book could be, well, we'll get into examples. So it's a way to group songs. Sets are a way to group songs that are targeted to a particular performance. That's the goal of a set. And now there are operational differences between books and sets that we get into. So you really want to start to think about books and sets as kind of two different ways to keep your songs organized. Books have certain things that they can do, and sets have certain other things that they can do that are really designed to work in the set or the live performance world. There's import-export around songs. We'll get to what a song is in a minute. There's tracks and scenes that are also attributes. And then there's searching. There's several ways to search to find a particular song or songs in your library. And we'll talk about what your library is as well. But song is the basic structure, okay? So how is OnSong organized? And I think this is really important. So not many people see the library, but there is this thing called a library, and the library holds everything about OnSong, everything about your OnSong world. Okay? When you install OnSong, you get a thing called the default library. That's just the first library. You can actually change its name if you want. All of this stuff is designed so that if you want to call the library My First Library, or if you want to call the library something else, that's not a problem. And as you'll see in the next slide, you can have multiple libraries. Now, there are two very important pieces here. The first thing is all songs, and the second thing is unbound songs, okay? Every song in your library is in all songs. So every song, there are no exceptions. That is the master list of your songs, right? And so I just have kind of a an example here of some different songs, right? And Smoke on the Water, Find Time to Leave Me, Lucille, Freebird, Stairway to Heaven, Brown Eyed Girl, Mustang Sally, and Margaritaville. These are all the songs that bands hate to play, by the way, but your audiences love them. So every song, regardless of what that song is, what that atom is made up of, is in all songs. Then there's unbound songs. Unbound songs I'll come back to in a minute, because underneath all songs, or along with all songs, there are books and sets. So in the case of books, we have some examples of rock, gospel, big band, 80s, 90s, folk, right? And in sets, I have coffee house set, concert set, Sunday service set, jam session set, open mic set, bar set number 1. Now, books and sets are very different, but every song that's in your set will be in all songs. Every song that's in your book will be in books. Now, for convenience sake, all the songs that are not assigned to a book end up in this spot called unbound songs. So if you don't put a song in a book, it's still in on songs, but it's not going to be in a book. It could be in a set, because you can take things from unbound songs and put them in a set. But if they're not in a book, they're in this thing called unbound songs, right? They're unique. Now, songs themselves are unique. Song names are not. I could have 4 copies of Margaritaville, and that's because of the way On Song is designed. You can have multiple songs with the same name, and that's completely valid. Each song has its own set of attributes. Books have attributes like styles, actions, and triggers. And then there's MIDI and DMX. Now, we will get to MIDI and DMX. Jim is really the MIDI expert. So he's going to help get all that put together. And we'll probably have to have one of the other moderators like Steve Hansen, who really is a DMX expert, to jump on with us one of these days and do that. Backups, real quick on backups. An on-song backup backs up your library. The on-song backup backs up your library. iOS Finder or iTunes, depending on your platform and the age, backs up your entire iPad, including all the on-song libraries, and it also backs up music. Now, if you keep your songs in the on-song music library, they get backed up with the on-song backup. If you keep them in iTunes, they are not, and we'll talk a little more about that in depth. One of the things, of course, that is a feature of OnSong is the ability to have multiple libraries. Multiple libraries are discrete. They are separate from each other. So even this color coding is a way to show you that. So the blue library has all songs, unbound songs, books and sets. The green library or the red library, the colors shifting here in the broadcast, has the red all songs and the red unbound songs and the red books and the red sets. They are discrete. Songs in the blue library will not show up in the red library unless you put them there by import and export. There's no drag and drop or way to get things back and forth. They are discrete. Okay? They're unique. They're discrete. Backups are also unique. If you back up the blue library, you're not going to back up the red library. If you back up the red library, you're not going to back up the blue library. And if you restore the blue library on top of the red library by mistake, it will overwrite. The blue library will the backup from the blue library will overwrite the red library as you go. If you want to transfer songs from library to library, you have to use import and export. All right, what's inside your library? Well, we already know that there's all songs, and there's books, and there's sets, and there's unbound songs. But what's really in there is a database. So inside this database, you have your song, you have the song text, the lyrics, cross references for any of the songs. If the song is in 3 or 4 sets, that's where those cross references live. Okay. Your user information is in that library, as well as pointers to PDF files. I'll get to that in a minute. Pointers to Word files, pointers to your media file, that audio, background, scenes, MIDI, chord diagrams, actions and triggers, song reporting, set information, and book information. All of that stuff is in this library. Now, if you happen to crack open what's going on there, do not go in there. You can very quickly cause problems. Just leave it alone. Okay? Now, we all came from the Windows world, most of us, or the DOS world, in which files were the king and files were inside of stuff, right? This is sort of that, but not. There are files in OnSong, and they're generally PDF files and Word files, and of course, backing tracks, right? Now, those are kept inside the OnSong world, but they are kept separately. They're not inside the database. They're inside memory structures. And when you look at them, it will look like a file, but they're not. Don't get confused. Don't get thrown. They are separate blobs of stuff, but they're not in the database. They're separate. And so, and this is particularly important for media files, because a lot of people put their media files in iTunes or music. Okay, that's over there, right? But if you back up this library, they don't get backed up. If you keep your backing tracks in the OnSong media library, then they will get backed up. And oh, by the way, you can have one track attached to multiple songs. That's an interesting idea. Okay, so that's what's inside the library. Inside the database, this is a real simple view. Inside the database, you have all songs, right? Because that's a thing in the database. You have unbound songs, that's a piece of your library. You have books and you have sets, and you can have multiple books and multiple sets. I have about 4 or 5 current sets in my OnSong, and I have 100 and some odd sets that I've done in previous. And I've got songs all over the place. And if I have to go back and recreate a show for a customer, I have the set from that show. Okay, All Songs has all of the books and all of the songs in it. And after I post this, you'll be able to see that I've sorted some songs into this thing. By the way, a great song number 4321, is not in a book. So where is it? It's in Unbound Songs. Now, what are these numbers? These are index numbers. These numbers are the actual song identifier. You don't see those in your user interface, but they're there in the database. So that's how I can get songs with the same name, because they will have unique ID numbers. So I can have sets with the same name. They'll have unique ID numbers. Okay? All right, let's talk about iOS, because some of the problems in the world come from iOS and some of them come directly from OnSong. And that's not to say OnSong doesn't have bugs. It has bugs. Every software package has bugs. There was only one software package in the world that didn't, and that's another story for another time. OnSong and iOS, it's a mutualistic, symbiotic relationship. OnSong can't exist without iOS, and for us musicians, iOS can't exist without OnSong. So, what things does iOS give you that OnSong needs? It gives you the database, file I/O, memory I/O is in and out. memory in and out, screen in and out, sound, and all the communications. All of these things are to a large degree part of the real world. Memory, hardware, right? Files, right? Reads and writes, hardware. That's the real world. The operating system talks to the real world. OnSong talks to the operating system, and OnSong does not talk to the real world, right? Even if you're using Bluetooth direct connection from a pedal, you still need the operating system, because the operating system provides the Bluetooth catcher, the receiver side, for the application. So the application does not talk to the real world. What's the real world? This screen is the real world. The earphone jack is the real world. Those are the real world, and the operating system talks to that. OnSong talks to the operating system. That's why many times you've got communication issues, you've got other issues, and on the forum we try and say, hey, can it do this? Can it do that? Because we're trying to determine whether the problem is inside the OnSong world or inside the operating system world. And those are really important. So OnSong sits inside this operating system world. The OnSong world itself is self-contained. So if you were able to look inside the operating system, you would see all these types of things: the operating system, music apps and data, email. These are other apps on your iPad, right? And you've got other apps that you may use, metronome app or whatever. And then there's unused memory. All of this is that 64 gig or 128 gig or however big your iPad is. And then inside of OnSong, pardon me, that's the OnSong world. And inside of OnSong, as we've said, there are libraries, and each one of those libraries is separate and discrete. So if I'm working in library 1 and I back that up, that's great. Doesn't touch library 2. If I'm working in library 2, that's great. Doesn't touch library 1. Now, a couple of versions ago, Apple introduced this thing called group applications. Group applications were a way to share data that is trapped to an application, and that really is trapped. Your calendar really doesn't see inside here. Is a way to share data between two different applications. What's the best example of this? My OnSong 2020 can or can't read my OnSong 2022 database. And the answer to that is, when did you install 2020? When did you install 2022? And if you installed 2020 before there was this group application issue, then they're probably separate. And if you installed it after, they're probably together. I don't know the exact dates and when that occurred, but that's what's going on. There's this thing called shared app space, and OnSong took advantage of that. Okay? It's one big memory model. Remember, your pad doesn't have disks, and it doesn't have anything except this big blob of memory, and it's all managed by iOS. Okay? Inside the OnSong world, as we've said before, we have some documents. And by the way, you will see once in a while a text file as a separate file. And there's a couple of reasons for it. One, it may be loaned, and two, it may have stuff in it that OnSong doesn't like in its database. You have the database file, you have some profile preferences, and you have the SQLite. So you have a bunch of things over here that you don't want to touch, and things are here. The Word documents and PDF documents are kept as separate files. Why? Because SQLite really is a text-oriented database, and you can't put these binary objects inside the text-oriented database. You can, but you don't. That's just database stuff. And if you want to know more, we can talk about that more online. Okay. So inside the database, again, a very simple view. Here's what I want you to think about. The OnSong database is a giant spreadsheet. Well, it's just like Excel. Different columns, Different golems go across the world, and there's data and information in each one of the columns, and each row is a song. Each row is a song. So when you say, show me a song, OnSong goes in here and says, oh, he wants song 1, 2, 3, 4. And they pull all the information out of that. So think of it as a giant Excel table. Now, if it's a PDF, there's actually a pointer to that PDF structure that we just talked about in this slide. There'd be a pointer there. And instead of a whole blob of text, there'll just be a pointer that says, oh, he wants to see this. Show that. By the way, this is exactly what this particular file is. This file is a big PDF, but I put it inside OnSong. And so I'm just scrolling this along. Okay. If I really want to see what's in the OnSong table, this is what's in there. I'm not going to take the time. Notice that the IDs are very long and complex. Okay. And then there's all information. But over here, there's this column called song, lyrics. And this lyrics is where all the lyrics for your text file is. Gee, look, it's just a big blob of text. That's right, it's just a big blob of text, because there are other attributes that tell OnSong how to manipulate this so it looks like the file that you want it to. Okay, there are over 30 tables in the OnSong database, and the song table itself has over 60 fields. That's how much information OnSong keeps in order to manage this world for you. Okay, I won't go through the data types in OnSong because we're done. Jim, any comments?
No, man, I was sitting here just thinking, you've done a great job, Sam. Thank you very much. And like I say, this stuff is I've always been interested to me. Sam knows my last 20 years of my IT career. I'm retired now, but I spent as an Oracle DBA. So this is all real nerdy geek stuff for me, and I love it. So hopefully some folks, you got some little bit of detail there that kind of explains things a little more. That's kind of what we're looking at here. Try to get a little more things that maybe you don't know out of reading the manual or just talking to people. But this is kind of things we're going to be trying to do from here on out. And Sam, sorry, I'm not a very good setup man. I should have had more jokes.
Okay, no, Jim is great.
Yeah.
So what we'll do, we'll end now. I think we've gone just about a half hour. We'll end now. I know you sent me a note that was about 22 minutes in, and I think I was watching the clock. We're about 15 minutes past. But so I'm going to post this PDF up online for you to review. We will make sure this video gets posted up into the group as well. And when we come back, I'll next Friday, we're going to do this every Friday, folks. So next Friday, we're going to go to the next step. And that is, now that you know where everything is stored, we're going to talk about how you get to see it and some of those things. So we'll be back next Friday. And we'll do this again, and we'll see if we can get the thing online so you can see it a little better on the screen. Anyways, thanks for tuning in, folks, and we will talk to you later. Bye-bye.